Starting off swimming as an adult is definitely challenging, but to become good at swimming is not impossible. Actually, have you ever wondered if it's possible if you started late to become elite at swimming? Maybe even go to the Olympics at swimming, make it in the professional triathlon ranks at swimming. This is all something we're going to discuss in this video and look at specific tactics and stories of people who did it.
Hey, I'm Lucas Siska. Welcome to the channel. We're going to answer 3 specific questions. Can I become comfortable in the water as an adult? Can I become competitive as an adult? Can I become an elite swimmer as an adult? Stay tuned because we're going to give real life stories, go in depth, and I believe at the end of this video, you're going to feel inspired. Let's dive into this. The first question is, can you feel comfortable in the water? I see so many people who start off as an adult just feeling so frustrated with their swimming. They feel like they just can't get it. Let me just tell you a story. This guy, Sam McKenzie, was a former client of mine a few years back from Bolton, England. He had issues where his legs were sinking, he was fatiguing way too quickly in his swimming, his breathing wasn't comfortable at all. We worked on all these issues with my special techniques, which, guys, by the way, you can find on my YouTube channel, full of stuff. The point of this story is to tell you that you don't need to be frustrated. It is so easy to overcome if you just are patient with yourself and have the right mindset. Sam went on to not only do a triathlon, he did a full Ironman and he crushed his swim time big time. He ended up being really comfortable in the water, whereas before he couldn't even swim 50 meters without getting out of breath. This is just one story of many. If you're patient with yourself and you're new to swimming, you can get really comfortable in the water. Just believe it. At first with Sam, his goal was just to become comfortable in the water. Well, with all those techniques that we implemented, he did that. But then he wanted to become competitive. And that's how he achieved his dream of completing an Ironman and crushing it in the swim. That brings us to the next topic. Can I become competitive in swimming? Well, you see with Sam, the answer is yes. But how do you do that? Well, let me tell you, you don't want to just get stuck on the drills if your goal is to become competitive. You have to move beyond that. But before we go into depth of how you can really train your body to be successful, we need to talk about one limiting factor for all people who don't come from swimming background. Take a look at this comparison. I'm going to show you a swimmer who is just new to swimming as an adult, and I'm going to show you the greatest of all time, Michael Phelps. We're going to put him side by side and look at the difference. Noticed most on that comparison between Michael Phelps and the new swimmer. The biggest limiting factor was of course the shoulder flexibility. So let's look at the simplest stretch that you can do to increase your shoulder flexibility, because what you can't do if you don't have flexible shoulders is you're creating huge drag because you're not able to put your shoulder in the correct spot. So we want to bring that shoulder from being out here when you breathe to right here. That's much more aerodynamic and much faster. This is the position that you have when you come off the wall, but it's also an excellent stretch. We're gonna squeeze our head and go from one side, and I can feel it, all my swim muscles that are used, I can feel completely right now. And then we're gonna go to the other. The next one is the Michael Phelps stretch because he does it before every race, or he used to do it when he was a swimmer. He's retired now. And he gets up on the block, he takes his arms and he bends over and he puts them over his head as far as he can go. Now, if you're new to swimming, you might only be able to do like this, and that's okay. But if you practice this consistently, it just takes 5 minutes every night before bed. Before long, you'll be able to bring that all the way up like this. And you can go deeper by turning one side to the other. Okay, on this final shoulder blade stretch, we're gonna, people who don't grow up swimming, sometimes their back is just bent like this. We've got to be able to bring our shoulder blades in. And you can of course do this with exercises, but we're gonna show how to do it with stretching, okay? The best thing you can do is hang from a bar somewhere or just grab a position on a wall. I'm gonna use this fence right here. We're gonna hold it and we're gonna let our shoulders sink in, okay? Sink in. And like I said, at first, you might only be able to go this far, but eventually you'll be able to let your chest sink and let those shoulder blades sink in. And the only other part of our body that needs to be very flexible is our ankles. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually sitting on them and I'm forcing them to get in a position where I'll be able to make them floppy. So at first you might only be able to be like this. Maybe you can do it right away, but eventually we want to try to go much deeper, lean back and get on them so we can really stretch them out. If you come from a running background, you might have really stiff ankles. So we've got to work on that ankle flexibility so that you'll have floppy ankles, which will help you propel yourself forward when you kick. Yes, to become competitive at swimming, we need to train. We just can't drill all the time. But how much do we need to train? Well, that depends on your goals. If you want to be really good, we've got to train quite hard. Let me tell you a story about a guy called Brad Callifelt. He was former world #1 in triathlon. Yes, you heard that right. Former world #1 in triathlon. And yes, this was a guy who started off swimming as an adult. To understand Brad's story, we have to go back to Australia because that's where he's from a town called Wagga Wagga. In this town, there wasn't any kind of swimming pool for him to train in. Yes, no swimming pool for him to train in. He was an elite runner and cyclist. He excelled at those, but his swimming was nowhere near the level it needed to be competitive in triathlon, let alone professional triathlon. So what this guy did to get into that level was, are you ready for this? He trained 80 kilometers per week as a triathlete, swim-wise. No, not as a pure swimmer. He was still running and biking and adding 80 kilometers of swimming to his swim training. And I even heard some crazy stories that he did stuff like wear shoes and full clothing and do 100 times 100 as a swim set, fully clothed. That's just insane. But this is the kind of stuff that he did that took his swimming to a level where he wasn't just good. He was coming out in the front of triathlon swim packs, putting him in a position to be a champion. He went on to be a 2-time Olympian, world #1 like I mentioned, and a Commonwealth gold medalist. It's just incredible. This story just goes to show you that if you train and believe, you can get there with your swimming. And maybe you don't need to swim 80K weeks, but guys, it takes some work to become good. It's just not gonna happen overnight, but if you have the determination and the desire, you can get there. Now, what I'm about to say might be a little bit controversial. No, not might, it definitely is. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this, but the question I wanna pose to you is, do you think somebody who started off swimming as an adult can make it to the Olympics in swimming? What do you think? I'm gonna tell you what I think. I think the answer is yes. But let's talk about this for a second. Going to the Olympics is extremely difficult. Not only do you have to do the right things, you also have to have something else called talent. Talented people make it to the Olympics. Talented people become champions in swimming. But guys, if you started off as an adult and you didn't grow up swimming, it's possible if you have that talent. This brings me to my next story. This is a guy that I met while I was in Tucson, Arizona. His name is Dylan Gillespie. Dylan is a super good guy and he comes from Minnesota. Up there he was interested in different sports like hockey, classic American sports like football. He didn't start swimming until he was 16 years old. Now that's still pretty young, but he missed all those years of development where he could have really learned those easy muscle memories that would have gave him great flexibility, fitness that would have launched him forward. But Dylan is a guy that was super talented. When he was 16, he jumped into the pool and raced a 50 and swam it in 24 seconds, just right off the bat. You can't do that, people, without talent. Now, Dylan is now a professional triathlete and he regularly comes out of the front pack in swimming. But guys, if a guy like him were to take swimming seriously from that point when he first started when he was 16 and just gave everything he had in swimming, who knows, the sky is the limit for him. Maybe he could have indeed made it to the Olympics in just swimming alone. Let me know your thoughts. I'm curious to hear. So pleased that you got to this part of the video, guys. Thank you so much. If you like this, like and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel, and we want to keep cranking these videos out. And I'd love to hear from you as well. If you've had your swimming struggles and you've had issues and you have questions, don't be afraid to comment. I try to get back to everybody who writes, and I would love to hear from you. So until next time, take care for now.